Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'm sure many women will relate to my story. My name is Eva, and I work as an accountant. Currently, I live and work alongside my husband, Owen. I'm 40, and Owen is 42. We don't have children, as I had to have a hysterectomy when I was younger due to medical issues. We've been married for 2 decades, a long time indeed. Owen was my first and only partner. We have our own home, good health, and financial stability. While my husband has always been a systematic and stubborn man, we've managed to maintain a harmonious relationship for over 20 years. However, over time, the routines of daily life and cohabitation have caused our intimate connection to fade for both of us. I'm not here to portray myself as a victim, as many women do. I stopped seeking intimacy with him, too. Still, the love and respect we share have kept us together. A few months ago, I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. After returning to bed, I noticed Owen wasn't there. Initially, I assumed he had gone to the kitchen, something he occasionally does. But as time passed and he didn't return, I started to worry. I decided to check on him to ensure everything was all right. The house was silent and dark, and when I checked the time on my phone, it was nearly 4 a.m. I walked down the hallway, descended the stairs, and checked the kitchen, but he wasn't there. I moved to the living room, but it was also empty. I began to wonder where he could be at such an odd hour. My last thought was to check my old office, which Owen now used as a retreat. It was the place he often spent hours playing computer games and watching his favorite shows. I opened the door quietly, trying not to disturb him, and found him seated at his computer, completely absorbed in what he was doing. It was common for him to spend hours in that room, so I didn't think much of it, until I noticed something unusual on his screen. At first, it didn't register, but as I focused, the reality hit me. Owen was browsing adult websites. The image on the screen left no room for doubt. My heart began to race, and a wave of discomfort and confusion washed over me. I hadn't expected this, especially at that hour. Seeing him so engrossed in such content unsettled and intrigued me. I wasn't sure how to react, but the sight filled me with unease. Trying to compose myself, I left the room and returned to bed, my thoughts swirling. The image of Owen on those sites stayed with me, and I couldn't stop wondering about the reasons behind it. Perhaps now I understood why he had been so distant and had abandoned our bed. His apparent addiction to these sites, especially in the middle of the night, seemed to explain some of the coldness that had crept into our relationship. I couldn't sleep, consumed by restlessness. I watched the clock as hours passed, waiting for Owen to come back to bed. Dawn was approaching when he finally returned. I pretended to be asleep, observing him quietly. He slipped into bed and fell asleep almost instantly, clearly exhausted after being up all night. I stayed awake, my mind racing as I tried to make sense of the situation. I didn't know how to address what I had seen, or where to even begin the conversation. Feeling lost, I decided to confide in a close friend. When we can't handle marriage issues on our own, we turn to those we trust, as most women do. I sent a message to my friend Emily, hoping for advice or just a chance to vent. Emily, who had been married 5 times, seemed like the perfect person to talk to. With her wealth of experience, I was confident she would understand or at least provide some clarity. Emily, ever eager for a good chat, called me back within minutes and insisted we meet at a cafe. She wanted to hear everything and offer her perspective. When I arrived, she greeted me warmly with a tight hug, immediately bombarding me with questions. Her concern was obvious and her reaction was intense. She began cursing Owen, assuming he had cheated on me. I quickly clarified the situation, explaining that it wasn't infidelity, but rather something I had discovered. Owen had been browsing adult websites late at night. As I described what I had seen, Emily's tension began to ease. When she calmed down, I admitted how upset I was by his behavior and confessed that I didn't know how to approach the issue with him. Emily listened carefully, offering her support and reassurance. After taking a moment to think, she started to give me advice. Her first question was whether this was the only time I had caught Owen doing something like this. She explained that, in her opinion, it might be a normal occurrence for some men and not necessarily a reflection of a deeper problem in the relationship. I told her that it was the first time I had seen him doing this and described how he had left the bed and stayed out for hours. That's when it all started to make sense to me. I told Emily that I had only come to this realization in the early hours of the morning when I went to check on Owen and caught him browsing adult websites. Emily suggested I observe his behavior that night to see if he repeated the same pattern. She gave me 2 options. One was to open the office door and catch him in the act. If he was looking at those sites again, the other was to be more discreet and investigate his activities on the computer without confronting him directly. I thanked her for the advice, telling her I'd follow her suggestions and start that very night. I was determined to figure out what was going on and take steps to address it. After paying the cafe bill as a courtesy, I left and went to work. That evening, I followed my usual routine. Owen and I greeted each other, talked about our day, and had dinner together. He was the first to head to bed, and I followed shortly after. Lying there, with my mind on high alert, waiting to see what would happen. After a few hours, I noticed Owen get out of bed and leave the room. My heart raced. It was time to execute the plan. Anxiety swirled in my mind as I tried to steady my nerves before quietly following him downstairs to see what he was doing. When I reached the open door, I realized it was slightly ajar. Through the small opening, I saw Owen sitting at his computer, once again browsing adult websites. At that moment, I felt a surge of conflicting emotions. A part of me wanted to burst in and confront him immediately, but fear and uncertainty held me back. Despite my anger and frustration, I couldn't bring myself to act impulsively. Watching him, so engrossed in those sights, left me disoriented. I debated confronting him right then, but the idea of an explosive scene made me hesitate. In the end, I retreated, returning to the bedroom, feeling weak and defeated. Lying in bed, my mind raced with questions and doubts. How had our relationship come to this? I couldn't stop replaying what I'd seen. This time, when Owen returned to bed a little earlier, I was still awake, tormented by the situation. My thoughts circled back to Emily's second suggestion, investigate his computer thoroughly to uncover what was truly happening. The idea began to solidify in my mind, and I resolved to take action. Once Owen was fast asleep, I carefully got out of bed and headed to the office, my heart pounding with nerves and determination. Reaching the computer, I pressed a key, and the monitor came to life. At first, nothing unusual appeared. I combed through his emails, but found only ordinary messages. I checked his personal chat application, but again, there was nothing suspicious. That's when I decided to examine the browser history. What I found made my heart race. The sheer number of adult websites Owen had visited was alarming, and a clear pattern began to emerge. The pages were all related to specific themes: wives with other men, wives with friends, and similar content. The frequency of his visits shocked me. This wasn't a one-time occurrence. The history stretched back months, revealing a daily concern. The discovery was a harsh wake-up call, forcing me to confront the state of our relationship. I couldn't stop thinking about gathering evidence of Owen's activities. Determined, I began taking photos and recording the screen, capturing every detail of the websites he had visited. My goal was to share everything with Emily, who, with her experience, might know how to navigate this situation. After saving all the evidence, I closed the browser, locked the office, and tried to calm myself. I went to the kitchen, and despite the late hour, I sent all the photos and recordings to Emily. My thoughts were a chaotic mix of confusion and worry, and the idea that my husband might be fantasizing about other married women only added to my distress. Emily's response was immediate, before I'd even finished sending the photos. I received a message asking me to find a private place and call her as soon as possible. Her urgency heightened my anxiety, and I quickly ran to the backyard, making sure no one could overhear. With my heart pounding, I dialed her number, trying to keep calm as fear and tension threatened to overwhelm me. When Emily answered, her voice was steady and reassuring. She urged me to stay calm and told me she understood the situation. According to her, Owen's actions weren't a conventional form of betrayal. She explained that his browsing habits indicated a specific desire. He was aroused by the idea of seeing me, his wife, with other men. Emily shared that this was a common fantasy among men, though many don't know how to express it to their partners. She revealed that during her third marriage, what she considered the best relationship of her life, she and her husband had explored this fantasy. Together, they had engaged in such scenarios at least once a month. Emily's revelation was both a relief and an overwhelming rush of emotions, leaving me unsure of how to proceed. She ended her thoughts by suggesting that the best step forward would be to have a quiet and honest conversation with Owen about what had been discovered. Emily advised me to approach him with openness and calmness. To better understand his feelings and desires, she also asked for my opinion about exploring Owen's fantasy of being with other men, pointing out that many couples find new ways to reconnect and reignite the passion in their relationship by sharing such experiences. Talking to Emily helped ease my nerves little by little. She continued to offer advice, explaining that she had faced a situation very similar to mine. For her, Those moments turned out to be some of the most intense and rewarding experiences she'd ever had with someone. She described how embracing new experiences and fantasies had brought positive changes, rekindling the passion and strengthening the bond with her partner. Her words gave me a fresh perspective and made me consider this possibility with greater understanding and openness. I thanked Emily for the conversation and all of her help, admitting that without her guidance, I wouldn't have been able to cope with the situation. I turned off my phone and returned to my room, where I spent yet another sleepless night trying to find the right way to address the subject with Owen. At last, I decided to create a setting that would make it easier to have the conversation. I waited for him to wake up, and when he did, I hugged him as usual and greeted him with a good morning. I began the discussion gently, telling him that during the night I had gone to the office to check some emails and catch up on work, and while I was there, I happened to see some websites he had accessed. As I continued to speak, I noticed that Owen was becoming increasingly uneasy and intimidated, as if he felt caught red-handed for something he knew he shouldn't have done. His face clearly showed his anxiety and fear of a serious argument. To put him at ease, I reassured him that my intention wasn't to start a fight, but to work together to find a solution. I reminded him that I was his partner and that I wanted to listen to and understand his desires, including his interest in exploring fantasies with other men. I emphasized the need for a calm and open dialogue so we could gain clarity about each other's feelings and needs. I asked him to share what was going on and whether it explained why he had been so distant lately. I also wanted to know if the websites he had visited reflected an unspoken desire or unmet need. As I listened, I focused on staying calm and empathetic to ensure we could address the situation constructively. Slowly, Owen began to relax and open up about his feelings. He confessed that this desire wasn't new, but something he had always carried within him. He had kept it to himself for a long time, worried about how I might react. He admitted that the distance and detachment I had noticed were his way of coping with these feelings on his own, without involving me. Owen expressed relief at finally being able to talk about it and hoped we could find a way to navigate it together. He explained that his fear of my reaction had held him back, but now, with this newfound honesty, he was ready to work through it with me. I listened to Owen attentively and found the courage to speak my own thoughts. I told him I wanted to better understand his feelings and that I was curious about exploring this part of his life. I admitted that I, too, wanted to experience life more fully and believed that exploring something new together could be a way to rejuvenate our relationship. After so many years together, our marriage had always been built on a strong foundation of trust, and this felt like an opportunity to deepen that bond. I acknowledged that the idea initially surprised me. I hadn't expected that he had been harboring these desires in silence. However, when he opened up, I realized how significant it was for both him and our relationship that I listened without judgment. His honesty created a deeper sense of closeness and understanding, reinforcing the strength of our connection. The idea initially felt distant, like something confined to our imaginations or stories we'd heard from others around the world. However, after several honest conversations, we decided it was worth stepping out of our comfort zone and trying something new. We wanted to explore a different experience, but with great care and respect. To ensure everything was handled correctly, we created a clear plan. Everything would be done safely, consensually, and, most importantly, with complete honesty between us. The sense of freedom this brought to our relationship was unexpected. As we openly discussed his fantasies, I felt my husband drawing closer to me, as though we had uncovered a deeper layer of our connection. He shared everything he had ever wanted to explore, and I felt equally comfortable revealing my own desires. It was a unique and liberating moment where we put aside our fears and dove headfirst into rediscovering ourselves. After aligning our expectations, we decided to start with something simple, finding either another couple or a single man willing to share this experience with us. We understood that success depended on both of us being fully involved, without anyone feeling pressured or insecure. We agreed to carry out the search together, ensuring no secrets or solo actions. Every step would be a joint effort, with both of us equally invested, so no one felt excluded. We began exploring various options, browsing websites, and joining groups focused on couples with similar interests. While it was an unfamiliar world to us, we soon realized that many others engaged in these experiences naturally and safely. This reassurance gave us the confidence to move forward. We exchanged a few messages and learned more about the people involved, which helped us understand that as long as respect was maintained, it was possible to create meaningful and exciting moments. The anticipation of finding the right person or couple gradually grew. Every message and every conversation we had about the subject brought us closer to this new chapter in our relationship. We decided that finding someone with whom we shared a genuine connection was essential. They needed to respect our boundaries and approach this experience with the same sense of responsibility as we did. We prioritized communication and sought someone who shared our vision of creating a unique and memorable experience. While searching, we used the opportunity to further strengthen our relationship. Each discussion and exchange of ideas reignited the flame between us. We discovered new facets of each other, reliving the passion and desire that everyday life had gradually reshaped over the years. It felt like falling in love again, rediscovering the chemistry and attraction we had always shared. Of course, we couldn't ignore the element of fear. Despite the care we took, we were aware of the delicate nature of the situation. This required maturity and mutual understanding. To address this, we established a crucial rule. If either of us ever felt uncomfortable at any point, we would stop everything and discuss it. This promise of safety allowed us to relax and enjoy the process more fully, knowing that nothing would ever be forced. With each new person we interacted with, we felt closer to finding the right match and the right moment. This experience wasn't just about venturing into something new. It was about strengthening our bond and making our relationship even more secure. We wanted this to be a meaningful adventure, creating a memory we could cherish without regret, just positive reflections on a special moment. Now, we are nearing the point of taking that step beyond our comfort zone. The thought of finding someone to share this experience with no longer feels intimidating. Instead, it excites us and brings us closer together. Whatever happens, this journey has already transformed our relationship for the better. We are prepared to move forward together, hand in hand, with open hearts and minds full of possibilities. As we search for couples or single men who share our interests, we are embarking on an entirely new journey. Once we've had our first experience, I promise to share every detail with you. Until then, I'll continue updating you on how we're navigating this new chapter in our lives. If you enjoyed this story, please share your thoughts in the comments. Give us a like and subscribe to the channel. See you soon.